Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on Unique Peace today. I am Janice. I am a Reiki Master Teacher and intuitive here on Long Island. I'm also a self care coach. And today I am grateful, super grateful to be having the wonderful Anne Deidre on. She is an intuitive, she's a light worker, she's a coach, and she also has her own podcast as well. So let's welcome Anne to the show.
Hi, Janice.
Hi, how are you this morning?
Fantastic. So great to be here. Thank you.
So, we were just talking a moment ago about how you had a moment in 2004 that just kind of opened up, you cracked you open, and you really stepped into that light and became that really powerful intuitive. So,
Yeah.
can you share that story with us?
Yeah, it really felt like a near-death experience where um, everything in my life just seemed to come crashing down at the same time. My marriage, my job, and I really shut down for close to a year. I found out it was a dark night of the soul, a spiritual crisis, and I'd already always prayed and meditated a little bit, but I found a meditation technique, Kriya Yoga. And that really brought me out of it. In about 10 months, I found the Kriya Yoga. I started doing it pretty faithfully. And within a matter of weeks, I started writing. My intuition came online. It was really miraculous. I could see this book I was meant to write. I could hear you will write a book. And I got the whole download on what the book was about and how to write it. So it's, yeah, quite an awakening.
Quite an awakening, yes, and I'm sure that's your first book, obviously, that
Right.
went to the
Yeah.
bestsellers.
Yeah. It was, a really beyond the ordinary experience, and something in my life just shifted. Like my energy, my chakras changed. It was energy healing. I didn't even know that at the time, but the writing was actually the piece that became the piece for me, which is interesting with your podcast, Unique Peace. The writing, the creativity became a divine channel, and I could feel the information coming through. I could know what it was and type it or write it or paint it. So yeah, it was really clear. There was no question that something was different.
And that is amazing. Just want to take a moment to thank Michael for joining us. Good morning. And so I know from multiple friends who are also in circles as well as myself that conduit, that writing and painting and drawing really, when you open up, does have an effect. It's kind of like the only way we can speak. Do you find that to be true as well?
Yes. Yeah. And I know you are highly Reiki attuned, and it feels a lot like that. The energy comes through me, the information, um, whether it's writing, speaking. I now say a prayer every time I do anything I call official work. I'll say a prayer of connection. But it also feels like a faucet. It's like it'll just turn on, and I'll be that channel. And in coaching and readings, it's just really in everything. So it's you know, quite a difference from what was happening prior to 2004. I felt very shut off, very blocked. Um, didn't even know what intuition was. So it was definitely a before and after kind of experience.
And I was just going to ask about that is what was, how when you made that shift, when you made that change, what did you, as you were saying, it's like the dark night of the soul. So you're getting through that. When you transitioned over to being really in the light worker energy, did you find it to be rocky? Did you find it wasn't as simple as people make it out to be?
Yes, yes. Oh, definitely. And back then, there really wasn't conversations. I didn't know who to really talk to about it. But the way that I feel synchronicity works, and because my energy was shifting, I did get out of the blue like notices from email about mentors to connect with, and my transformation became my path. Like first I woke up and I just knew everything in my life was changing, and that felt very horrible. But at the same time, I had this intuition that I never really had before. So I could take this angel class. This was like 2007, and no one in my world like knew what I was doing or talking about, but I knew inside. And now all these years later, I'm still doing angel reading. So it was a different kind of information that I was guided to go from. Yeah. And so with the transformation, it was difficult, but I pulled angel cards every day and slowly, I was able to make it through the divorce with my ex-husband, an ally. Just everything seemed to really, on some level, turn out for the best for everyone. So that was encouraging. It was in the highest good, although it was difficult. So from there, I just kept following. I call it the voice. Gandhi called it the voice. Go here. And it doesn't like tell you what to do, but it's more like a directive in your higher self. So I get to know what that directive is, and I'm on board with it, if you know what I mean. So it's very free will, but I'll hear guidance. And that's just everything.
And as you kept on leveling up and shifting up and following your guidance, you've written more than one book at this point. So how was each book channeled? And it's like, what was that process like for you?
Yeah, the first book came through so easily. It was Inner Visions, The Healing Path of Art. I'd been an artist since the 90s, although I'll tell you, it wasn't from school or college or any education. I majored in art history, but I was too scared to take art classes because a teacher in high school said, "You're not good in art." So I believed that person. But then in my 20s, I bought paintings and I started painting. And I was guided. I didn't know I was guided at the time, but looking at my art now, it has like light language, encodements of consciousness. It's visionary art. As an art history major, I know it's a genre of intuitive art, but I didn't know any of that back then. But then the book was like, write a book about your paintings, because the paintings had divine messages. So I heard my guidance say, put the paintings in order, go through them. What each one is about. They have a divine message, 21 of them. And that was my book. And it was amazing. And then I heard if you write a book, you can coach people, which I really didn't know how to do. And I had that on my website for like 3 years with my art book. And then somebody ordered a coaching program. And then I heard the voice say, work with the chakras. I didn't even know about the chakras, but I learned and was self-taught and was guided. And once I jumped in and started working with people, it came to me of how to work with their chakras and find the false belief systems. So I was doing that year after year. And then the second book was write a second book about your coaching program. So that was Extreme Intuitive Makeover, 55 Keys to Health, Wealth, and Happiness, which was really 8 keys, like an 8-week coaching program to start, Janice. But then as I sat down, I said, why not more keys? And so every time I sat down, I said, again, to the divine and company, what's next? What's another key? So that turned into 55 keys, which was just, amazing. And then the next book, it was Intuition, 7 Basic Instincts to Change Your Life. I wanted to consolidate the 7 keys, 55 keys to 7. And then I wrote a book about my story, Miraculous, because it really did feel so otherworldly. And I put that story back in the book. Now that was a while ago. My story's changed a little bit, but yeah, the books that come to me with kind of a download. I just get the whole idea. I have one right now. It's like an outline form. And as soon as I sit down, I'll type instead of write it in a notebook. That's very labor intensive for me, but I'll type it right in the computer and it'll be the same process. Yeah, it's definitely inspired writing.
Inspired writing, yeah.
Not like an education I took on, to learn how to write. It comes through.
It's almost like automatic writing, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, except that the only difference I know about that is I say a prayer, like I call on divinity and my angels and archangels and ascended masters in particular. And I don't know if automatic writing is just calling on the spiritual world, but to me, it's similar, except I specifically request that I get that divine guidance. So.
No, absolutely. As a fellow writer, for me, it's always been, I'm old fashioned. I'm tactical. Yes, the writing is labor intensive, but I feel that when I write it, I can slow down and understand what's being told to me. Whereas if I type it, I'm like, either way, you're like, did I write that came through me? Okay, so what does this mean? But with automatic writing, I use that more for my clients, or if I have a question and I don't feel if I feel like I'm too chaotic myself. It's like, okay, the ego is too involved. I have to kind of separate. And as somebody who is new to automatic writing, the hardest thing is to let the pen flow.
Yes. Yeah, I call it, I have a higher self channeling method. And like, if I want to know a question, this or that, I'll write dearest and my name. And I teach this too, like write a little comment, and then I'll write without stopping unedited. Sometimes you got to excavate a little bit, but I do say that prayer anytime, like I call my higher divine self, I call on archangels, ascended masters, divine spirit, asking for the highest and best to come through, that kind of thing. I make sure I say, and then I jump into channeling.
And since your miraculous intervention,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, it was. It's called a soul braid too, I heard. Like my higher self just stepped in and said, "Hey,
we're gonna change that for you."
Yeah. Yeah, intervention.
Intervention. I do like that in this case. How has your life improved?
Well, doing this work, it feels so guided, and like any other kind of work I've ever had in my life. So it's like a permanent sense of well-being that I didn't really experience prior to, where I would have the job a year kind of situation. Just, growing up the way I did, you go to school, get a job, and married, and I have two amazing children in their late 20s. So I've been able to, work from home and be there a lot when they get home from school. I also did some nursing work with healthcare. I can call in angels. So I just find that every area of my life I've been able to feel more aligned. Like I feel on purpose every day. And if I'm not working with clients, if I take a week or so vacation, I can feel it after the week. I'm like, because the channeling is really a great source of well-being and peace, right? If you say work is peaceful, it is when you do this and you say the prayer first and have the information come through. It's just like, it's just altogether different.
Yes, and
You feel better at the end of the
you
day.
feel better. Good. So as you've gone through this miraculous intervention, and your life has changed, and it has brought you some peace, how do you define peace for yourself? What is your personal definition of peace?
I love the name of your podcast so much. I mean, for me, peace was something that I had a lot of trouble with, a lot of angst in my teens and 20s, diagnosed depression and anxiety. I was chosen as the HuffPost Live representative once I was out there in the world talking about curing my depression, which I absolutely did. There's no trace of it. And so just being able to, work on an element of peace, where I used to call it transcending. Like I heard there was a peace school where you might have chosen some difficulty in life to be able to rise above and transcend it. I do love the word transcendence, but I also love the integrating the higher dimensional energy into the earth plane. So that it's not like trying to get away from someplace, but rather be at peace where you are, which I think is one of the more difficult things. I call, the equanimity is one of my favorite words. So you're not moved. It's like whether you have highs or lows, like you're not affected so much with equanimity because you're observing and you're witnessing. I've done a lot of work to be able to have that awareness. I'm not saying I'm able to do it all of the time, but I have the awareness, and that's so helpful. Like I don't have to get engaged in energy that's disturbing unless I choose to, right? So that to me is peace, when you can calm the emotional realm. Because like I said, that what I tell people is what you struggle with, you can often teach. And I definitely struggled with feeling peace most of my life. I was an emotional roller coaster.
I 100% agree, and I basically received the same messages, and that you you've been through this so you can teach others. You can coach them through this. Definitely.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you are in English class, write what you know.
Yeah.
So it's teach what
Yeah.
you know, coach
And I
what you
didn't
know.
know a lot back then, so I got really stuck in English classes. Regular education was a struggle for me. I feel like I knew enough, but intuition is so much different. You have clear knowing from a source that you have no logical reason to know things, but you do. So,
Yes.
uh, yeah,
Yes. And
that was a lot more to write about.
yeah, gives you a plethora of information.
Yes.
And in that plethora of information, in your personal definition of peace, how do you find peace in your own life? How do you bring peace to yourself?
Yeah, another great question. Ongoing, I would say, Janice, I am on the lookout for the best energy tools for myself. And that's what I tell people that I coach with that ask. It's like you will resonate with certain things. Um, I really like my angel tuners. So I will click on my computer and wave my angel tuner around for my space. I like frankincense. I love the plant kingdom and the breath, these things that we resonate with, the abundance of Mother Nature, and that availability of resonance and frequency and hertz. I channel that through in one of my books about the hertz level. So I like the science of that. If there's a hertz level that's scientific and it's a higher frequency, and I can attune to that if I'm in any kind of mood at all, I can manage my own vibration better. So
Yes.
personally, whenever, whatever it is, like my parsley plant might be the thing, but yeah, it makes life fun to realize that you really can feel better if you find out how to do that.
Yes. And every frequency, because I love to tune into the frequencies as well. It's every frequency will help you at a different point in time. And I've often asked, especially when I feel off, what frequency do I need?
Yeah.
So I'm glad I'm not the only person who does that.
There's a whole range, and if you're whatever kind of day you have, and you can go up one little tier, and build on it, but that we have that capacity, that knowledge, that wisdom, that's a game changer for me.
Yes. And as you're tuning in and bringing peace and finding peace within yourself and in the world around you, how do you find and bring peace to others?
Oh my gosh, another one of my favorite things. And I found, since being a life coach since 2010, that I had the ability to be in presence. It's a professional level of ability that I was taught by Jesus and Buddha, the Pleiadians, some of my guides, Michael and Gabriel and Krishna, that I could observe what was going on with my clients. And when I did that, I could emit a healing frequency. So my readings became energy healing readings. So I love being able to do that at the supermarket, wherever I am. Like if I'm amidst any chaos or anything, having a bad day kind of thing, I can hold the energy of a frequency of non-judgment, harmlessness, peace. And I have noticed sometimes people shift around me, and but it's free will. I'm not trying to do things. I'm just holding my own ability to hold a frequency as high as I can in that moment of presence, of witness and observing, like that, and not judging whatsoever, whatever anybody's saying or doing, anything like that. It's just really something that my first group that I channel, my collective, like I said, of Jesus Book Pleiadians, I had written that in my first book, Intervisions, in customer service, working at a museum. There was a Frank Lloyd Wright house, and everybody would get so mad about their tickets for some reason. There I was behind the desk, and they were always getting upset. And I thought with me at first, back then, I didn't know how to handle it. And then I heard the voice say one day, don't react, be sincere, and be available to what they have to say. And when I started doing that, it didn't shift. I didn't even know what to call it back then. I just didn't move in energy. I didn't get upset. And it wasn't just being professional. You know what I mean, Janice? I'm like, oh, I'll just be nice for now. Like I really embodied it. And I started to notice people responding more in kind to like what I was emitting than being angry still. So I like being able to be, in that presence wherever I am as much as I can.
And sharing that with others, even though they don't know. That's kind of like the best.
Exactly, yeah, because it's not interrupting free will whatsoever. And it's not a religious thing, but like I said, when I started coaching in 2010, some of the masters came to me to work with me through my coaching, and Jesus would say, don't cry when your client is crying. Don't this, and just kind of showed me how to maintain a level of awareness so that when I did that, I could continue the flow of intuitive guidance easier and better for the client. First, I felt a little less than sympathetic, thinking, gee,
It's
I feel like I'm
so
being a little
hard.
cold, but it wasn't like that. Equanimity is actually warmth. And I was emitting
That,
an energy of transformation. And that's what they showed me how to do for coaching.
and that's beautiful. And I just want to thank Minty May for joining us. And he resonates with the natural world. He's like using trees and water, the wind, for bringing in some peace into his life. So thank you, Minty. And so how do you bring peace to your client? Like if you've got somebody who's just joining you, whether as an intuitive client or a coaching client, and you can feel the chaos, because we speak energy, and when we speak energy fluently, you can sense the chaos. You can sense when things are off. So
It's
how do
another
you?
thing my divine team taught me is that I could maintain being able to see my clients' greatness, I call it, no matter what they're going through. I can see the power of the soul, and then I can receive the guidance to assist them often in how to move through what they're going through. And when I started angel readings, there were these categories like relationships, soul purpose, wellness. And back then in 2007, I was helping everyone with everything kind of thing, right? And then I started to notice that I was really good at helping people find their purpose. This elusive thing back then was finding their calling. And now I feel like our purpose is wellness. I feel like our purpose is to raise our vibration. And if you have a title for that, great, right? But yeah, there's bring my clients clarity. And another thing is people are going through things, and I do have a psychic ability to see beyond like the moment of what they're going through and see the bigger picture. So I can see if it's a past life. I can see if it's a false belief that they picked up from childhood. I can sense and feel if it's an empathic ability that they just took on from other people. And a lot of my clients and myself have a level of a higher empathy where it's not just taking on everybody's energy. That certainly exists, but if you can add that observance to noticing, then you're not going to pick it up. And so I can do that in sessions and say, okay, this is what's really going on. This is why you're being triggered with this, or whatever the case is. This is, part of your purpose here. I work with chakras, ascended chakras now. I work with some spiritual numerology. I did notice that I tend to work with people that are here to elevate the consciousness, whether they realize it or not. So when they realize that they're here to do something on a level that's very personal and collective at the same time, then they feel, I think feeling that sense of purposefulness is important, like finding the meaning.
And
Yeah.
when you are working with people who are trying to find their purpose, and it could
Yeah.
be downright frustrating. It's like that could lead to depression, actually,
Yeah.
because you're like, why am I here?
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do?
Right.
So, how do you kind of help people in guiding them through that and learning more about it while at the same time teaching equilibrium? I can't say the word, I mean, equilibrium, equaling themselves out where they're not taking on everybody else and still on their path to helping others. Because most of the time when we're looking for our purpose, it's because we're supposed to be doing more to help others. It's a servitude, it's stewardship.
Right. Yeah. It's, partly of a very personal incarnation, I call it, where your personal sense of well-being and joy and things like that. It's amazing how many people have come to me and have no clear information for themselves about what really brings them joy and happiness, because they've been in so much overly working out their third chakra to the detriment of themselves, too much esteem for others and not enough. So to help bring them back into some self-care and some way of, feeling better for themselves. And also that every personal transformation people go through does help the collective, right? So in one moment, when one person responds instead of reacts, I believe in the universal laws, and that ripples out into humanity. So somewhere across the world, somebody's feeling better because of it. So that it's really profound, right? The power that we have in our moment to moments that make a difference, that I find purposeful. So helping my clients, I do energy healing readings. I did connect with an ability to bring divine energy through my work, as well as an access consciousness clearing statement to help remove. It's not just here's the good news, good luck. It's like, let's shift some energy
Right.
into in alignment with what we're seeing here. That's so great. Yeah. So it's energy healing readings. I think it's, starting as a psychic in 2007 and then getting some attunements and energy healing. It really is a blend. And I think it's a new genre, quite frankly, that we
Yes.
have here.
I will agree with that 100%. As someone who does, as a Reiki practitioner, as a practicing
Yeah.
Reiki practitioner, most of my readings, because I started off with mediumship. I mean, at a very young age, you and I were discussing this beforehand. I'm an indigo, so I've been very in tune, but had no idea what was going on when I was young. Kind of
Wow.
freaked out as a teenager. Tried to, not deny it, but hide it for sure because I didn't know what was going on. I'd freak out my friends, and when you're trying to fit into a world you don't fit into, you kind of squash
Right.
it.
Yeah.
So definitely that energy reading, because when I have people on my table, that's when their clearest messages come through for them, because they're
Yes.
at peace and at ease, and they're more open to receive the information that they need to receive.
That's awesome. When I first got Reiki, it was around the mid 2000s. It was mind blowing. I felt like I was like had this transfiguration of like emanating white light, and then I'd go get more Reiki, and I'd say to the person, once I started developing my psychic intuition, I said, "Can you read for me at the same time you're doing Reiki?" And everybody would say no, but I'm like, I think you can, and that's so phenomenal. You're doing that, Janice. I've been wanting more people to do that for a long time.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and I'm 100% in agreement that we can receive messages, and I do. I don't I let them flow through. I was blessed with a wonderful teacher, a mentor, where she told me, because I was telling her, "I get messages. Do I do this during the" She goes, because I told her what I was doing was holding on to the messages, and that at the end of the session, I
Yeah.
deliver, and she goes, "That's the best way to do it."
If they want them. Yeah. Free
If
will.
they
If you
want
like
them
a
to,
message.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's absolutely. So I know I just recently learned that I'm not the only person who does it that way, and I am grateful that that's the case.
Yeah. I
Um,
remember.
and it's also a wonderful way to help people find that peace in their life, because it's like they got exactly what they need on an energetic healing plane and a message plane.
Right.
So,
Answers and energy.
yes, I agree. And as we are learning all this stuff, what is the greatest lesson you've experienced personally and that you've been able to teach when it comes to peace and energy?
Mm. You know, I think some of the strongest things that I do on a daily basis is to set my energy frequency for the day early on. Like every day, I will say, higher self guide me. I align my will with divine will. I have some implementations of light that I put in my auric field, maybe run some sacred geometry, because I know that we're in the world, but not of the world, but that's not always so easy. So with all the different kinds of energy going on the planet, I want to be on my own sovereign energy as much as possible and like use my tools. Archangel Michael taught me this. Is this mine or someone else's? I did that the other day. I was just having kind of an off moment. And I just said, is this mine or someone else's? And it immediately dissipated. So just like really observing how you feel, because I don't think we were taught that. I don't know about you, Janice, but how I was feeling throughout the day, that's not something that we really discuss. Like, don't talk about your feelings, but I say, check in with yourself. Don't say, I am so upset if you're upset about something. Say, I feel, and then notice it. It's a technique to release the feeling, send it to the central sun, but don't carry it. Don't deny it. It'll just stuff it in your chakra system. And manage your own energy as much as you can throughout the day. And realize we're in an emotional world. There's the emotional realm, the mental realm, physical realm, the spiritual realm. So get to know that you are a spiritual being, having a physical experience. And part of that does include potentially upheavals of discord and energy at any given moment, and that you can observe it and not take it on, I think is just the ultimate mastery. I'm not able to do that 24/7, but I think when I can, we're talking, that's like ascended master, right? I do say this is the lifetime to really, I used to think it was another lifetime I was going to come back and do all these things, but Spirit's like, why wait? Like, really practice your energy.
Yeah. And I've done similar things, especially in like a work environment, a corporate environment. Is like, is this mine or is this somebody else's? Or why do I feel like this way? And I notice immediately in shifts, if I'm in an office environment, one person can change the whole room. So it's like, I was feeling fine 5 minutes ago, then you came in. So this isn't mine.
And is that light work or sensitivity too, right? But I call it sensitivity with a capital S. So you can be sensitive and open, but not taking on. That's great because you want to be sensitive, but not to the point where you're taking on. You can be compassionate without having empathy and as sympathy.
Yes. And it kind of helps with understanding what's going on and then having some tools in our toolbox. So what kind of tools are in your toolbox? And I give a couple of situations on this one. So like if your son or your child is like coming in and it's chaos, and I know as with you as a mom and me as a mom, my kids are more in tune with, she's going to come at me with something about energy or the other worlds. But what do you give them to like help them as quickly as possible?
Yeah, I was like I said, they're in their late 20s now, but I remember I was like waiting till they were like 11 years old. I could start to introduce the topic. I just was like, I think it's too soon. Is it time right? Can I talk to them a little bit about that? And it's kind of come full circle, because at first I think they didn't want to be interested in the things that I was interested in. That's like a normal teen thing, but to see them kind of come around and really honor and value what I have to share with them. So I also have two very strong souls, that are very independent in their energy of, indigo and really have a lot of their own soul power, which I've always recognized since they were young. But I do my best to anchor the energy, hold the space, allow whatever it is, to be brought forth and discuss, and try to stay rational and intuitive at the same time. But yeah, I'm actually seeing them later today. It's my youngest son's birthday time, so we're going out for lunch a little bit later. So we like a lot of joyous celebrations these days. My older son got married last year. So
congratulations.
So there's some good family time we're having. But I think they really appreciate the energy, knowledge, and wisdom, and the ability for them to know who they are, really let them know who they are on a soul level, and And I think that's helpful. I wish I had known when I was that age who I was, right?
Right? It would have been so much more helpful, but apparently we had some lessons to learn.
Yeah. You are
Oh,
connected to source.
right. And on a more practical note for many of the listeners who are in an office environment or in a customer service environment, whether that's retail or what have you, it can be super stressful. It could be like you want to scream at them, you want to scream, period. You want to just tell your boss off, but you can't. So how can we bring peace in those
Oh
situations?
my gosh. So funny. Yes. I had so much time to practice this, and I didn't know that I was like apprenticing in the early 2000s, but I was going to work as an assistant property manager with like 75 phone call, i.e. or receptionist assistant property manager with 75 phone calls a day, 4 different property managers telling me what to do all day long. And my soul just started to say to me, "You're a mystic." As I was driving in to sit at the desk, I could hear, do that sincere listening, be available to be of service. I could hear all this around 2001, 2002, actually, looking back. And I was waitressing for a while at the Olive Garden. So I'd like, I'm going to go over and just be that best version of myself I can be at this table. And there was such a sincerity about it. So I find different places I've been in, corporate and workplaces, I found them invitations to manage my own energy better. And it just makes it really interesting, like, okay, can I hold my own with all this going on right now? Can I observe? Can I be present? Can I not take things personally? That's a big one.
Oh, that's
And the
it.
thing
Yeah.
about one of the places I was working with in a nursing home, it was so difficult. I wanted to quit every day at one point, but I was doing my higher self channeling, and they said, quit when you have peace. I'm like, no, that's not what I want to hear. But since I got that awareness and I was channeling it, I had a little bit of the energy to shift it. So I started to go into work a little bit different. Like, how can I find peace today? And then it took like about 6 weeks. But I was actually at the point where I was like, I don't care if I leave or not. Like, I'm actually at peace. And it turned out my second book was coming out, and I was ready to go on a little bit of a leave. I was doing a little bit of a practice run. So I was able to take a month off for a leave, and I left, and I got high fives, from my coworkers. But I thought, I'm really glad I just didn't quit that day that I wanted to. I'm not saying that we shouldn't leave situations that aren't good for us, right? Because there's definitely a thing with light workers. I think we stay too long in situations possibly. But to have that discernment about how do you feel about what you're doing and where you are, can you find an opportunity or an invitation to be your best energy self where you are, or is it time to leave that situation, right? Those places. And that's, I think, a great question. And if you find yourself like, okay, is this a time to really work on my energy mastery every single day? Or can I find myself in another place where I'm more aligned, and then it's not such a job to keep my energy good every day? So I think those are valid questions.
Right. And how would one know in your professional experience when that time could be?
Yeah, I like to create a vision. I do that with my clients, and a template. Thank you, God, I now have a career or job or whatever you want to fill in the blank. And I feel, and I start to work with the frequencies, or help them work with the frequencies before they actually leave the place abruptly necessarily, right? To create a new energy pathway to get them on the path where the out of the blue, the synchronicities, the alignment, the places where they're really meant to thrive are going to be able to be, attained, I suppose. So you create the energy first, right? If you're walking around, this is terrible, I feel terrible every day. I do feel like with the universal laws, you're resonating with feeling terrible. So why not shift that, because you can, and imagine and feel yourself in a situation where you're better, whatever those words are for people. I can tune in psychically, valued, honored, whatever really resonates for the person. We can get them in that energy, and then the doorways can open up easier.
I think that's wonderful advice, and I think that more of us need to do that.
Yeah. You're powerful, right? You can create a new pathway and let those things line up for you.
So, as we begin to kind of wrap in, what other advice about finding peace or creating peace can you share with us today?
Yeah. So go back to this divine creativity. I mean, so many people will say to me, I'm not creative. And not only are you creator consciousness, you are aligned with creator consciousness, the ability to create your reality, um, align with an energy that can move through you. If you don't feel like you are, artistic, I still think there's a lot of amazing divine creativity through painting with watercolor or anything, just to have fun and bring in an element of play without judging like how you think you're doing, that kind of thing. I'm just really, creativity has just changed my life. Whether I realized that I was an artist or not, just the act of creating created such well-being, and writing too. How about you, Janice? When you write a book, don't you feel like nothing bad can happen, kind of thing? It just feels so
It does.
completely
It
amazing.
does. It is amazing. I focus on poetry, so I can tell stories in a snapshot, so to speak. So absolutely, it's like this story needs to be shared and needs to be shared with somebody. So who is that? And because it's like, okay, well, I've written it down. I've kind of lived this. Now who else needs to know about it? So it's absolutely release. It's definitely
Poetry is like light language. I've had poetry runs when I was, 39 turning 40 and 49 turning 50. Suddenly I was a poet for like 24 hours. I just cranked out those poems. It was just astonishing. And there was such love and light, and I don't even know how I did it. Everything rhymed. It was just, I think my spirit team came in to say, they're there, you're just turning another decade. But the poetry became the light codes of aligning my energy field better. So poetry is just magical and just really.
I love poetry. It's always spoken better to me than anything. Poetry and mystery novels is like, if I'm going to read something that is not self-help or spiritual or growing, it's always either poetry first or a mystery novel, because mysteries appeal, because I like to do the unwinding and the unstringing of a story. It's like, okay, how did we get here, and go backwards? And so I think that has always been very helpful, because that's kind of how my mind doesn't work in a straight line. It's kind of like all over the place. And so a mystery novel kind of helps me. It's like, how did everything get twisted and turned, and then create that straight line. Whereas
Drew and Agatha Christie were my go-tos.
And with poetry, it's just, again, stories in a snapshot.
Yeah. It's brilliant. Yeah. Poetry is brilliant. But yeah, it's also the energy that comes through you that can change your frequency into a higher level. I watch Saying Better. I watch my words. It's not better or worse, just say out of non-judgment. But if you're going to be feeling at a higher vibration, I think connecting with source energy consciously and bringing it through, which is like what I do when I say my prayer. I call upon my higher self, and that energy, whatever comes through me from that place, always feels more peaceful than just, whatever, without calling on anything. Because I think you need to do that on this free will planet. You want to be clear about what you're connecting with, and that's helpful.
It is very helpful. And it's not just writing and painting, but it's also music and sculpting and just anything that is creative.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Cooking, decorating, just color, just all the things that I think we just thought were kind of mundane are actually quite magical,
Yes. And I think it kind of comes down to taking pleasure in the simple things.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, and here comes my cat.
We have a guest.
Nice that you liked your podcast.
It's all good.
It's only on my notes. It's okay. I'm being intuitive, so yeah, being present for yourself, I think, and celebrating every day too. That's another key they were telling me about peace. Is you can look back and you can have certain kinds of things you think about, your life, but if you can make peace with everything and value every experience, even if you don't know what the blessing was, you can trust that there was one. I think is helpful too, because you want to maintain an energy of um, freshness and your cellular blueprint. You can recalibrate, right? We don't have to live in the past or fear the future. Just when you open up your intuition, that's another great way of feeling peaceful, is your intuition is always guiding you. So be still, open up, and listen to yourself.
It's that trust factor.
Yeah. You can tell too with intuition. It feels grounded and has a peaceful tone to it.
Yes, there isn't any anxiety surrounding it, and you just know.
You're not in a rush. Yeah, your intuition is in a rush.
Beautiful. And Anne, I want to thank you so much for joining us this morning. And I'm going to put you back in the green room real quickly.
Thank you, Janice. Love everyone.
Thank you. 1 second. So I want to thank everyone for joining us this morning, and I hope we all discovered more about peace. I did. And on next Sunday, I have the wonderful Carol May Whittick coming on. She's all the way from London. She is an energetic resonance coach, and she is going to share what brings her peace. So join us next week. I look forward to it.